Into the Mystic with your host and certified Reiki master, Jessica Pareto. Join her on a spiritual adventure where she joins her ancient roots and contemporary wisdom to cultivate healing. Discover the power of energy healing and learn how it can help you heal all those you love. So now, please welcome the host of Into the Mystic, Jessica Pareto.
Hello, this is Into the Mystic on Bold Brave TV, and I am Jessica Pareto, your host, coming live every Saturday, 2 p.m. Eastern on most major platforms. So last week we were talking about empaths or being an empath, and we ran out of time because I was jabbering. So I just wanted to touch base with just a little bit from last week that I missed, which was about animals. Can animals and plants be empaths? So, yes, they can be empaths. They only certain ones. Dogs are empaths, and so are horses. So, while the concept of animals being empaths isn't scientifically proven, many animal lovers and researchers have come to the conclusion that yes, they can. I know a dear friend of mine in Illinois owns, or she works at this horse, at this like barn, this farm place, and she brings children out there who are who have disabilities and are autistic, and the horses are wonderful with them. They're actually they connect with them, which some of these kids do not connect usually with people, let alone animals, but the horses somehow can feel what's going on with the individual, and they communicate really well with each other. So some examples, dogs, they're known for their loyalty and ability to sense human emotions. They often comfort their owners when they are sad or anxious, which absolutely, my dog is definitely an empath. Cats are not as sensitive usually. Um, they're more independent, but they don't find that they are empaths. But horses, they're highly perceptive and can mirror the emotions of those around them. So they are often used to in therapy and working with people with disabilities or especially children. Dolphins, actually. Dolphins are very intelligent and they're social animals, and they're known for their ability to, they're not scared of humans, and they can sense human emotions. So they're used also in therapeutic settings to help people with emotional and physical challenges. Elephants. So my son just got back from South Africa, and he was actually on a safari, and he was dealing with elephants. And that's the first thing that he said was, the eyes looked right like through his soul. He said they communicate. They're very, very smart creatures. So elephants as well, they display emotional behaviors and are known to comfort one another in distress with one another and also humans. An elephant uses its trunk to gently touch a grieving elephant or a human in distress, which he did say that. Plants. Now, I'm learning to be a green thumb, so the idea of plants being empaths is more of an esoteric concept than a science. But some plants are sensitive. Their behaviors, they react to touch by folding their leaves, suggesting a form of sensitivity to external stimuli. Trees for sure, particularly in forests, they are believed to communicate and support each other through root systems and fungal networks, sharing their nutrients and warnings of danger. Houseplants, that not only do they provide a little oxygen and make the room, a little bit more bright, they respond positively to human care and attention. So when it dies, or when, like in my aloe plant, for instance, which is dying as we speak, um, it wilts when it doesn't have enough water, or when you want to cut it to use it for, a skin irritant or a burn. I tend to catch myself asking if it's okay if I cut her. And you can kind of tell when you do cut them if they start to get sick. how quickly the rest of the plant kind of just shrivels up. So, but when I actually did Reiki one time on my aloe plant, and it did help. So that was proven, at least in my eyes. House plants, they grow more robust when regularly talked to and communicated with. So while the concept of animals and plants being empaths are intriguing and supportedly, there's some evidence, there's some not. It's important to approach it with an open mind and recognize the current limitations of scientific understanding. So that was my little synopsis from last week. So if you missed it, I also do want to touch base too. I know and I'm just teasing. People who know me know that I'm kind of a smart ass. When I say I don't like people, obviously I like people because this is what I do, but they're kind of a tough crowd. So I'm only being a smart ass when I say that. So I hope no one takes that personal. Okay, so on to today's topic. It is a variety of I guess concepts, relationships mostly, but so we form different kinds of bonds with people in our life. So we have soul ties, we have soul contracts, and we have karmic relationships or karmic contracts. So I was going to do something on about a person's worth and what they consider their ego or their standards, right? So then I was like, you know what? I was going to do the soul relationships, the soul contracts, and I figured I'd just tie everything into one. So we shall begin. So karma. How does one what is the definition of karma and how does one accumulate it? So most people think that karma is always a negative concept, right? Whenever you do something, that's karma is going to get you. So karma is not necessarily that. It is it refers to the idea that a person's actions, good or bad, in this life and previous lives determine their future fate. Good actions lead to positive outcomes, and while bad actions lead to negative outcomes. So karma operates under the principle of cause and effect, as above, so below, suggesting that every action has a consequence. So karmic relationships has something to do with that. It's a type of connection between individuals believed to be the result of karma from a past life, previous life. These relationships are often intense and challenging, serving as a means for you to learn the lesson that you didn't learn before. So I'm sure there's, it can be family, it can be friends, it can be relationships. I would say most relationships probably are karmic in a way, but then there's soul contracts and soul ties. So the difference is, so the ultimate purpose of a karmic relationship is growth and self-improvement and what you've learned from that. Although they can be tumultuous and emotionally taxing, can make you sick, can be abusive, can do a number on you, there's still a lesson and a blessing that you get out of it. A soul tie is a little bit different. And I've just actually learned this recently when I've been doing some past work with a very awesome individual who's been helping me open up my Akashic records. And I did not know that there was a difference between a soul tie and a soul contract. So that's why I thought I would kind of put this out here, because there's a lot of, myths and talk about all these different types of things. So a soul tie is a very deep spiritual connection between two people. It can be formed through emotional intimacy, which it usually is, physical intimacy, or spiritual bonding. Soul ties can occur in various types of relationships, such as romantic, familial, or friendships. These ties are believed to bind individuals together on a soul level forever and ever, influencing their thoughts, their emotions, and their behaviors. While soul ties can be positive and nurturing, they can also be negative and very unhealthy, especially if they involve manipulation, just being toxic for one another. A soul contract is a metaphysical concept that suggests individuals enter into an agreement in a previous life, before birth, with other souls, to experience specific lessons and challenges in their lifetime now. So these contracts are believed to be created in the spirit realm and serve as a blueprint for a person's life journey. Soul contracts can involve various aspects of life, including relationships, career, health, family stuff, ancestral stuff, personal growth. A lot of curses or I would say bad luck is usually soul contracts. So the idea is that these pre-birth agreements help souls evolve and fulfill their spiritual purpose for why they come back on earth this time. Soul ties are often, mixed up with soul contracts. So it's kind of hard to decide which one is which, right? So soul ties they carry a certain significant emotional and psychological impact. Soul ties is a little bit more deeper than a soul contract. A soul contract can be with ancestral stuff. That's a family member wanting your land, and that your family doesn't have money, so they give up their land for a certain negotiation. Could be business, could be a marriage contract, could be anything. A soul tie, though, is something that you do with a person over and over again, which becomes karmic, but there's a difference. But a soul tie is usually formed by a physical and emotional aspect. And I've learned recently that I don't want to do that anymore because it's rough. I mean, there's people that you love that you have to deal with on a daily basis. And you need to know the difference between, well, is this a soul tie? Is this a soul contract? Or it's a karmic? Sometimes they probably are all three, and sometimes they're not. So romantic relationships, intimate connections with romantic partners, especially those involving physical intimacy, are often a soul tie, okay? Family relationships, bonds with your parents, your siblings, or other close members can create powerful soul ties due to the deep emotional and genetic connections. Friendships, close friendships, especially those built on mutual support and trust, and because you have a lot of acquaintances in your life, not so much friends. There's a big difference. I always tell my son there's a difference between an acquaintance and a friend, that they're usually not the romantic ones. There's also ones you can form with mentor or teacher relationships, or student relationships, which can be built from your guides, your teachers, someone that you look up to in your life, that you respect, that gives you advice, or you have an emotional investment with. Also, traumatic relationships. So if you've been in a relationship that has influenced every aspect of the decisions you make or how you live the rest of your life, some type of PTSD, that's usually a soul tie. That relationship is characterized by trauma, abuse, intense conflict, and those for sure make soul ties. Spiritual or religious relationships. So spiritual leaders, religious mentors, or fellow, believers, like your soul family, I like to call them. And then there's codependent relationships, is one of the big ones that is definitely a soul tie. This is where you are heavily, you rely heavily on another person for, reassurance, for support, financial or emotional. It's usually some type of unhealthy dynamic. It's not an equal balance. That would be your soul ties, which in a way, I guess you would accumulate karma with these individuals. So accumulating karma is through actions, intentions, and thoughts. But we are going to take a short break, and we will be back right after this.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery, or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back. This is Into the Mystic. My name is Jessica Pareto, and I am your host. We are talking about, soul contracts, soul ties, and karma, and karmic relationships. So, how does one accumulate karma, per se? This is a question, I do talk about with people all the time, because once you kind of hit this plateau of your awakening, your spiritual awakening, and you start to see things in a completely different light, I feel like everything that we do, every decision, everything we say, every action we take is a way to accumulate karma, I guess, in a way. So there's so many different types, but karmic relationships are the ones that are what keeps us stuck in these, I want to say, patterns, these circles, these ruts. So accumulating karma, it's through actions, intentions, and thoughts. And there's some ways that you can accumulate karma by, for positive actions, acts of kindness and compassion, such as helping others. It's like giving back or paying it forward. It's kind of the concept. Being honest and respectful. Practicing forgiveness, patience, and integrity, which is, to me, that should be the first thing on everybody's list. That's what makes an individual. It's not an ego-based thought. It's just morally a person knows right from wrong. At least they should. And that has to do with being honest and being respectful and having integrity. The negative actions that can accumulate karma will be, harming others physically, emotionally, or mentally. Dishonesty, cheating, manipulation, harboring hatred, jealousy, envy, resentment, those kind of low frequency guilt vibes. Positive karma should be accumulated throughout, your days, because you should be living your life that way regardless. But you can do, practice meditation to go, to get centered, grounded, to have a peaceful mind. So you live the rest of your day not in this crazy state. Karmic relationships are typically formed due to unresolved issues or lessons from the past or past lives. So these lessons are meant to provide you with the opportunity not to do the same shit again, for personal growth, because then you just start to accumulate trauma or karma, trauma, ancestral stuff. So it can form by conflicts that you've had with a person, unfinished business. Let's say, for instance, I can be guilty of this a little bit. When you're in a relationship, or any type of relationship, whether it's a friendship or an intimate relationship, when it's done, it should just be done, right? Sometimes you keep the people around, or you still let them in your life, just not completely all the way. You're not breaking that karmic bond, because when it's time to go and you've learned your lesson, you got to close the door so other doors open. I am guilty of that, but it's usually because I'm usually not the one that's in the wrong. I think it's just people, and some people just, they grow apart from each other, and usually, or one does something to the other and they just can't, coincide with one another anymore. So when you come together in this life, it's probably because you didn't resolve it from the last life. Mutual lessons, right? So souls might agree to help each other learn specific lessons together, such as forgiveness and patience, or self-love. So that's where the self-love and knowing your worth comes from. Balancing karma. One individual might be in a karmic relationship to repay a debt from a previous life. So this is where this comes in, this whole pattern of what's the definition of karma, right? So let's say that you're with someone and you may have already broken your contract with them, or your lesson, you learned your lesson, but you're still involved with them, and they are still kind of dragging on, not growing or getting over what they've accumulated for their soul contracts that has nothing to do with you. So does that go on into your relationship and in your life? I would like to say the answer would be yes. And that's where, like, who you let in your biofield, who you lay with, who you spend your time with, you become that frequency. You start to resonate with them. So you might be accumulating you're taking on now their soul contracts, right? It's still up in the air. I'm still learning these lessons. Balancing karma. One individual might be in a karmic relationship to repay a debt from a previous life, but if you are still with them, will it become your debt? Depends on if you are accumulating something that you know that is going on and you're taking part of, right? So let's say you know that this person is with someone, he's married or he's in a relationship, and you still are with this person, even though it has nothing to do with you. You don't know the individual they're with. Well, you are accumulating their karma, because you are now involved. You are now in the situation. So you're going to end up having, either in your next life, it done to you, or you're going to keep repeating only having these type of relationships over and over again. So that's a dead giveaway. A romantic relationship, an example for a karmic relationship, would be two people who are intensely drawn to one another, but experience just a tumultuous relationship filled with toxic behavior, like back and forth. There's challenges, there's difficulties, because you haven't learned these valuable lessons yet. Boundaries and personal growth, for sure. Family relationships. So this is a tough one. This hits home. A parent and a child can, especially if they have a particularly difficult relationship, maybe working through a karmic contract or a karmic relationship from past lives. The challenges they face together can help them grow. Guilty, for sure. It's I think that's a chain. That's something that continues on. Unless you break it, you heal. One person has to be the one that, okay, I've learned this lesson, and it's hard to do that when you're a parent, because they're your child. My son could have been my parent in a last life, but there is a continuous. There's a pattern. That's all I know. Definitely a pattern. So romantic relationships, when there's an intense connection with a person, right? How do you know that this is this love? Are we supposed to go through this, or is this just karmic and then we move on, right? So that's where your boundaries and your self-worth come in. So when you realize your self-worth, when you realize your enough is enough. I'm tired of taking the abuse. I'm tired of being shit on. I'm tired of not giving enough, or not being able to give my partner what they need because I'm not for them. When you come to realize that and you part ways, that's the way of you learning your lesson and you breaking it. But the second that you go back or you have another relationship like that, then you are going to still take that karmic bond from that and go on into another relationship and then continue on the chain. So it's like one big shit show. All right, so the difference between a soul tie and a soul contract. A soul tie, the nature of the connection. Soul ties are emotional and spiritual bonds formed between individuals from deep, intimate emotional ties. They can form through various relationships, including romantic, familial, friendships. Soul ties can be temporary or long-lasting, depending on the nature and depth of the relationship. I think that's where one person has to know when enough is enough, how much you want to take from one individual, whether it's a boyfriend, girlfriend, or a parent. If it affects your everyday life and it's almost to the point of abuse, then yes, that can be a soul tie, and that should be, there's no reason for it to continue on, right? The lesson's been learned. It's now becoming toxic. So usually, though, that they're long lasting. They're different from a soul contract. Soul contract are they're premeditated, right? So before you come into this life, you have made an agreement with the spirit or this certain individual to come back into this one and do it again. So that's the difference between the tie and the contract. So you may know that you're not good for one another, and you may know that this is not going anywhere, and you're peeing up a wall. If you have a contract with that person, you gotta suck it up and you gotta do it, because otherwise it's a chain of events that could affect, per se, your destiny, I guess you would say. Soul contract are premeditated, and they're embodied in physical for lifetimes. Like, you can have somebody for lifetimes and lifetimes if you don't, realize and get your shit together. Soul contracts are typically lifelong, influencing major life events, relationships, and personal growth. They guide the soul's journey, growth, and evolution. They are seen as mechanisms for learning and fulfilling one's spiritual purpose. So there can be more than one, obviously. I think at this point in my life, I've only had soul contracts and karmic connections. I have one soul tie that I've had to make a decision to cut loose, only because it's not healthy for all individuals involved. Making that decision, though, was very hard, because I'm an adult, and what I choose to do in my spare time is my business, right? This is how I've gone on thinking it should be. But in all reality, even before I've met this individual in this life, everything up into me meeting him was actually due to this soul tie, without even knowing it. So every action I have done has been because I'm at this point in my life, I've got to break the same connection that I keep doing from other lives, right? Didn't realize this then. So I had to finally, when it was put into perspective for me like that, it was very easy for me to do it. I didn't want to do it, but I don't want to go into the next life accumulating this person's karma, this person's contracts, this person's unhealthy relationships, unhealthy whatever. So the key differences, right? Soul ties are formed through emotional and spiritual connections during one's lifetime, while soul contracts are believed to be prearranged agreements made before birth. The purpose, they focus on emotional bonds and connections, whereas soul contracts are intended for spiritual growth and fulfilling one's life purpose. Soul ties can be temporary or long-lasting and can have varying impacts. Soul contracts are lifelong and are designed to influence major aspects of your life event, which we will talk about when I come right back. Thank you.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality? But it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating. Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like, it was almost instant. Like, I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. You know, it feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back. This is Jessica Pareto, and you are watching Into the Mystic. We were talking about the key differences of the soul ties and soul contracts. We are now going to talk about the indicators of soul contract, right? So how do we recognize somebody in our life? Is this a soul contract or not? Recurring themes and patterns. Like I said, if you continue on accumulating karma through either your actions or the actions of the person that is around you, even with or without your knowledge, that is a way that you can end up having these recurring patterns and themes through other relationships or karma. You know, if you did it, it might, if you didn't do it, but it might happen to you again, or vice versa. So if there's themes and lessons, constantly, like one person always has the same type of individual that they seem to attract or like, that's their type, well, then they obviously haven't learned their lessons from before. There's a theme. So certain relationships stand out profoundly, impactful, either positively or negatively. These relationships often feel destined or fated, right? So this is almost where this whole soulmate, twin flame topic comes into play, which I will do one on that on another episode, because there's so much out there, so much false information about this topic. So it ends up being people just they're doormats because they think, oh, this is my soulmate, this is my twin flame, I have to be in this relationship, we're destined, we're fated for one another. And that's total bullshit, just so you know. So certain relationships that stand out profoundly and make an impact on you, strong intuition and feelings. You might have a strong explained feeling or intuition about a person or a situation, right? So like, let's say you meet this person in the supermarket or when you're out to lunch, and you just feel like this person, like you don't know how you know them, but there's just this a pull. you have a feeling that you've been there before, or that you are attracted to this person, and you're not usually like that, right? That would be a dead giveaway. If you feel like there's a sense of a purpose or a mission that you have to accomplish being in this situation or with this individual, that feels like central to your life, that just relates to everything, this can manifest as a calling, a strong passion, or a deep desire to pursue a particular path or cause. Okay. This is an indicator of a soul contract, not a soul tie. Okay. Sometimes they have to do with one another, which is kind of confusing. But that's a contract. Unusual synchronicities. If you experience unusual, I would say, coincidences as for like numbers or certain peoples or situations, like let's say every time you go out, you see this one person, or every time you think about this person, they end up calling and you haven't talked to them forever, or they get brought up. That would be considered a synchronicity. These events feel too significant to be mere chance and often provide guidance or confirmation. The emotional intensity. Okay, this is where like you get almost obsessive, or it's toxic, right? So if you have an emotional intensity to a person that is beyond your recognition, your imagination, that is going to be a contract. How about life-altering events? Major life events such as significant losses, achievements, or transformative, excuse me, or transformative experiences that shape your life's direction and lead to profound personal growth or awakening. Also, spiritual insights and spiritual awakenings. Moments of spiritual insight, awakening, or a deeper understanding of your life's purpose can also signal the presence of someone in your life that is a soul contract or a soul tie. I would say probably most of the people that are still in your life, and they can be soul family, are probably a contract. Your parents, your kid, your teachers, especially if there's that one teacher that just doesn't like you out of all the people, and you have no idea why, or an individual. That doesn't have to be a teacher. That's going to be a soul contract. So how do we know when one is up? I mean, you would think, okay, I just don't want to talk to this person anymore, and that's it. I think it's a little bit more than that. I think it has to do with fulfilling a lesson and a purpose. So it's outlined. So it has to be, and the agreement has to be completed in order for it to be up. So these are signs that it means it should be ending, or it could be ending. So if you start to get resolution of issues, the challenges or conflicts that once seemed like you can't get over have been completed, then that's a sense of closure. That is your closure. When you feel a sense of inner peace and completeness, like when you know you've come to terms with, okay, this is coming to an end. I can't do this anymore. This is not, I don't want to live like this anymore. Not just for my sanity, but for just every day's events, because it literally predetermines every other thing that you do the rest of your life. When you see growth and change within yourself, or both parties, it's like sometimes people grow together to just go apart, and that's when your soul contract is up, and that is not easy. It's people come and go in your life. A few true ones will stay. It's inevitable. So the loss of these things affect, individuals differently. But so for people who hold on to all of these individuals, and I'm guilty, sometimes you're just accumulating more contracts and more ties. They played a role in your life, and they fulfilled that role, and that's it. It's time to move on. So when you start to have a loss of interest with the intense emotions or attractions that once drew you together, like the honeymoon stage, I guess you could call it, that means your contract is up. It's done. Your life circumstances are changed. So if something big in your life happens, let's say that you have to move away, but your partner can't go with you because no matter what, it's not going to work. That's another giveaway that it's up. Or when you meet new people, okay, and your hobbies or your tastes change. And I don't mean being not faithful, but I just mean you've outgrown the situation and you've moved on with that group of people, means it's up. So breaking a soul tie is going to be a lot different. Okay, so a contract and a tie, different. The soul tie is not as easy as the contract. So when you finally realize that this person or this situation is a soul tie, it can impact your life, because you realize that everything up until that point has been because of this soul tie. Whether you realize it or not, even before you met him, it absolutely does. So limit or cut off contact with the person to prevent further emotional entanglement. Forgiveness. You can forgive yourself and the other person to break the soul tie. So there is no more of that investment, because the more that you invest the emotional part of it, the tie, literally, it's like a cord. It's going to keep getting longer and longer. There's ways also someone can, cut the cords for you, like an energy worker or a Reiki practitioner, or you can do meditations or certain things to do it yourself. You just find a symbolic ritual and kind of do a little intention and snip it away. You can talk to a therapist, a counselor, or spiritual advisor to help you get over this aspect or this unhealthy attachment. Healing practices, meditation, energy healing, journaling, self-care is also a way to cleanse yourself of these unhealthy attachments. Focus on self-love and growth. Prioritize your personal growth, self-love, and well-being. Invest time in activities and relationships that nurture and uplift you. So pick a better group of people that are positive, that don't treat you like shit, and you should be good to go. So how do we know when that time is, and how do we know if that's our ego? Or let's say that you've been with a person for 20 years and you've been through ups and downs, you've been through everything you could imagine, and they get sick. Now, it's time for you to move on, right? You've been wanting to move on, but then your partner gets sick. Is it the right thing to do if you leave? Is that going to be your ego, or is that because your contract is up? And that's, I think, where, at least for me, not in this particular example, but when it's time to move on from people, I think that's what takes people longer to acknowledge that, because they don't know if it's the right thing to do. And it becomes toxic. It becomes unhealthy. Let's say the person that was sick was kind of a jerk to begin with, and then they get sick, right? And the other person stays in the relationship because they don't want to leave them when they're down. So how much karma or ties or contracts are you accumulating from that decision? And that's where our choices determine our fate, our destiny. Sometimes being a good person is okay, but it turns in not a good thing, because it could turn into your journey being shit the rest of the time. So literally every decision we make, from the moment we wake up to the time we go to bed, is it marks our destiny. It marks our path. It marks what we accumulate, what we bring in and what we bring out, and who we bring in and out of our life. And it's a lot of shit to think about. It's interesting, but so let's say you want to continue with a soul tie or a soul contract. How does that affect your life? Emotional drain, right? You're constantly tired. You're constantly not feeling good. You're exhausted. If it drains you, the relationship drains you and causes you stress or anxiety, it's time to, you shouldn't be continuing on. Even after you've, made these you're aware of what's going on or who this person is to you, and both of you have tried to fix your rights and everything's all, rainbows and unicorns again. It's not. The soul tie, it's the universe is telling you you got to go, that y'all need to be apart because you're just going to accumulate more. Stagnation. You may feel stuck in your personal growth and unable to move forward in your life. That's another thing that's okay. Well, it needs to go. And your limited potential. Literally a person can limit everything that goes on in your life just because of the choices you make of staying, from the littlest to the biggest decisions. We are going to take a short break and we will be back right after this.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness: Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them. We discover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back. This is Into the Mystic, and I am Jessica Pareto, your host. So before we took the break, we were discussing about how prolonged action, can delay your growth spiritually, your life path. And it kind of hit home a little bit for me because this is something I'm going through recently. Like I was saying earlier, that I'm working with this individual who's great. It's hard. A healer needs a healer, but it puts it into perspective in a lot of different ways. And I have always tried to, since I've awakened, tried to open up my Akashic records. And I personally, the things that I was doing I didn't get very far with it. So this person was known to do. This is what he specializes in, and we got, we definitely resonated with one another. And I had a breakthrough. I was able to open up my Akashic records. So I realized, some relationships in my life that I have, had in my life for a while, whether I've justified having them or not, it was reassurance that what's going on is deeper than what I thought. So this person and I have been in each other's lives, in numerous lives with one another. We've actually even, our roles have reversed. He's been a woman, I have been a man, and vice versa. It's tough. It was tough to actually see this, because the person that I see now in this life is not the person that I was seeing while I was doing these meditations and this hypnosis kind of stuff. And it's literally it's the same shit, different day, I'd like to say. So this right here does hit home because I realized that my whole every decision that I've made from the time that I was a teenager, or the relationships I've had, even the most important ones that have come to an end, that I didn't want to come to an end, are because of these soul ties that I have made with this one individual. And that was, for forever, I'm the type of person where I speak my mind. I tell you what I think, but I don't get in your business if it's not my place, right? If you want to talk to me, I'm going to love you unconditional no matter what. That's just who I am. As long as you're not shitting on me left and right. This person was shitting on me left and right a little bit. He wasn't honest. He wasn't forthcoming, right? So I didn't realize all of the karma I was accumulating was because of his actions. And we've done it in so many other lives. So when I was put it into perspective, like, hey, if you don't, if you still allow this relationship, to go on, you're going to go on into the other life like this again. You've had lots of lives. This is not like one or two. This is continuous lives. I'm only on my second one right now with him. So I've only seen two. I know that there's more. I've seen bits and pieces of the others, but it is a theme. And the theme is basically sneakiness, not being able to be together because of one of the other's actions, family stuff. So I had to finally say something because I wasn't going to unless I realized, hey, I'm going to go into this other life. And I don't want to do that again because it's, without me knowing it, it is affecting my life. It's a blockage in my life. He's done nothing of any sort of change, right? So he's done nothing wrong. I'm the one who has realized I'm worth more than that. I don't want to continue this on and to keep continuing it on because he's just accumulating more soul contracts with others. I am too. And I'm accumulating theirs. So enough is enough, as much as it kills me. So I had to shit and get off the pot, and I had to say something. And I don't think that I think there's more soul ties to accumulate that I need to break off from, but there's a big difference on how I feel because I didn't realize it, but every day I felt heavy. I felt there was a worry, like it just was, I didn't feel right. Like I didn't feel my worth. I didn't feel great. So it was a hard decision, but I had to say, hey, I can't have this type of relationship with you anymore. And I also had to realize some things also with family stuff, same kind of issue. So it's a lot of deep soul work. It upsets me. It hurts me. It's not easy, but you come to learn that once you realize it, I don't want to live like this anymore. I don't want to go into another relationship and think that this person's going to be able to do this to me again because I don't know my self-worth. And that's what it all boils down to is self-reflection. I think that the universe wants every single person to realize that they are here for a reason, whether it's good or bad. It's how you react to it. It's what you learn from. It's what you experience, and how you make the experience important to you. And if you're continuously just doing the same thing and going in circles, well, you're kind of wasting the whole opportunity of what it is that we're here for. So anyhow, we'll continue on next week about this. We'll get into more of like the twin flame, the soulmate connection, karmic connection stuff, but time is up and I want to say thank you so much for joining me. I will be back next week, next Saturday, 2 p.m. Eastern, live every Saturday on Bold Brave TV. This is Jessica Pareto, Into the Mystic. You are watching. And if you would like to do any type of work here with me, energy work, Reiki, Tarot, Oracle, you can get a hold of me at jessicap@truesoulhealing.com or www.truesoulhealing.com. I hope everyone has an amazing week, and I'll see you next time.
This has been Into the Mystic with Jessica Pareto. Jessica firmly believes that by guiding a person to come into their own true, authentic self, we awaken their inner beauty and open up pathways for them to thrive and shine. Walk with Jessica on an unforgettable journey into the mystic. Saturdays, 2 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.